What's going on, guys? In today's video I'm going to show you how to do a coolant change on your SeaDoo. This is only applicable to the 4-stroke skis, obviously, but the process is fairly straightforward. This is something you should be doing, according to SeaDoo, every 5 years or 300 hours. That may vary depending on the model and the year that you have. For this example, this is a 2021 SeaDoo GTR. It only has 100 hours on it. So we're doing this change a little bit early. It's a 4-year-old ski, but I like to do it a little bit ahead of time just to be careful, just to be, proactive with the maintenance. It's very easy to do. Really all you need is some kind of coolant. It has to be rated for aluminum engines. XPS does have their own if you want to use that. I've always used Prestone, ready to mix or ready to use. It's pre-mixed. But this, more importantly, it's low silicate, and it's also rated for aluminum engines, which is exactly what this engine is. You're also going to need distilled water for the flushing process, and you're also going to need a Allen key to remove the drain plug on the bottom here. So let me just walk you through the process. So before I mention anything, SeaDoo does mention that you should use like a flush agent, like a cleaning agent, and what they want you to do is drain the system, fill it with distilled water, add the cleaning agent, run the ski for 10-15 hours or so, and then drain it and then refill it with your new coolant. I've never done it that way. I've always just drained the system, flushed it with distilled water, flushed that, and then added in new coolant. Realistically, you don't even need to use the distilled water. You could just drain the system, put new coolant in, but I like to take it a little step extra further and actually flush the system out. If you're proactive, you'll never get to the point where you kind of get that silicate stuff building up inside the ski, the minerals and stuff that you really need to get out. So if you're proactive with your maintenance, you could just go ahead and drain the system and refill with your new coolant. They just have to make sure that you get something rated for aluminum engines. That's the most important part. So we're going to go ahead and follow that process, and really all we're going to do here is drain the system here. This is your ride plate. It's filled with coolant. This is essentially your radiator. So when the ski's riding in the ocean or in the water, whatever, the engine is pumping through the water pump, which you can't see it, but it's right down here. This is your coolant pipe, goes through the engine, and then it sends the hot water through your ride plate, and that's what radiates the heat off, and then it goes back into your engine. So we're going to drain it from here. That's your lowest point. And then we'll also take off this cap here. That way there's not a air vacuum. Actually, I can kind of hear it, so there is a vacuum in there. So we'll open that, we'll drain the system, and then I'll show you the next process. But first, let's go ahead and get this drain bolt off. All right, we'll go ahead and drain this now. Try to catch this. All right, that's pretty much drained there. We don't have to get everything out, so let's go ahead and put the drain plug back in. All right, I'm sure it's not coming up on camera, but there are a few flakes in here, which is exactly what we're trying to clean out of the system. So this is good to go. It's all drained. Obviously, the system's pretty much completely drained now. So we're going to go ahead and fill the coolant expansion tank with the distilled water until it's about halfway filled. There's going to be quite a bit of air in the system, so once you fill it, let it sit. It'll kind of drain on its own as the air burps out. You may have to do that 2 or 3 times. I'm on my second time now, and it looks like it's almost there. But I'm going to let this sit for just a few more minutes just to see if there's any more air in the system. All right, that seems like most of the air is out. There's obviously still going to be some in the air in the lines in various places, but this should be good enough for the flushing. So what we're going to do now is just go ahead and recap this. I'll do that in a second here, but we're going to start the ski. Obviously, we're going to have it on the hose. Realistically, you want to get this up to operating temperature, but with it on the trailer, running on the hose, it's not going to get hot enough. So we're just going to run it for 30 to 60 seconds, let it sit for a few minutes, let that carbon seal cool down, start it up again, run it for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, something like that. Just enough that we can start pumping this distilled water through the system. And once we do that 2 to 3 times, we're going to go ahead and drain that. Everything we just put in, we're going to drain it back into the bucket, and then we'll do a normal fill with the new coolant. So let's go ahead and we'll get that process started now. By the way, for those of you that do not have a flush adapter, I recommend getting something like this. I could put a link in the description, but this just makes it so much easier to flush your ski because you just have to turn this on. So after you start the ski, you can just twist this guy to start pumping water through your ski, and you don't have to go back to the hose bib to turn it on that way. This is going to be the first start, so there may be some smoke from all the fogging oil burning off. There's the antifreeze from when we cleaned it out, winterized it. Getting good flow from the intercooler pisser. And we'll just let this run for 30 seconds to a minute or so just to get the water pumping through the system. All right, that's been about a minute, so we'll go ahead and cut off the water supply here. Shut off the ski. We'll give it another minute or so to cool the drive shaft down, and then we'll do another start just to get that water pumping through. You can actually see the old coolant being pumped back into the return. So all of that pink fluid that we originally dumped out, and there's actually some particulates in there as well. So this is good that we're doing this. All right, we gave it a break, so let's go ahead and start it back up. Of course, we'll get the water flow again. And again, we'll let this run for 30 seconds to a minute. All right, we should be good there. Cut off the water. Cut off the ski. And now we're gonna go ahead and drain the system for what we just put in. We'll get all that pink, the remaining pink coolant out. We'll drain the system completely dry, and then we'll go ahead and do another flush with more distilled water. So let's go ahead and we'll do that now. All right, you can go ahead and put the drain plug back in. Now we're just going to repeat the process we started earlier. Go ahead and fill the entire system with new, fresh, distilled water. All right, guys, you know the process. Go ahead and put the cap on. Go ahead and start the ski. We'll get that water flowing. And again, we're just going to let this rinse for 30 seconds to a minute. All right, it's been about a minute. Go ahead and shut the water off. Shut the ski off. We'll give that drive assembly a minute or two to cool down, and then we'll do another cycle. I don't know how well that's coming up on camera, but there was quite a bit of sediment that was in the system. This bucket was completely clean, and you can see some of that black material that was coming out. So definitely a good thing that we're flushing this out. All right, last cycle. We're gonna go ahead and turn the ski on. Turn on the water, and we'll let this go for another 30 seconds to a minute. We're good to go. Water off, ski off, and now we're gonna go ahead and drain the system for the last time. And that's pretty much it for the draining process. The next step is to obviously just refill the system with a new coolant, and there's a couple ways you can do this. The first way, which is what I'm probably going to do, is to leave the drain plug out and have someone start to pour in the new coolant as you're standing by the drain plug, and you wait until the new coolant starts to come out to cap it. That'll pretty much get rid of most of the old whatever's left of the distilled water. Pump that out of the system. You can cap it that way, or the alternative is to put the drain plug on, fill the system with the new coolant, run the ski for a few minutes, just like we've been doing for the draining process, and then check to make sure all the air is out. It's burped, and you may have to top off. So I'm going to do it the first method just because it's just a little bit easier. I'm going to go grab my fiance to have her help me with this process. All right, so my fiance is going to pour the coolant into the expansion tank. That's a green coolant, so as soon as I start to see green coolant come out here, I'm gonna go ahead and cap it. So whenever you're ready, go ahead and get started, and we'll just watch it down here. All right, so we can see the remaining distilled water coming out, and we're just gonna keep on letting this go until it starts to come out green. You can see just how much fluid is left over after you think it's completely drained. Alright, so we're starting to get hints of green. Looking a little bit better now, but I'm just going to let it go until it's a solid green color. It's getting there. Alright, I'd say that's pretty good there, so we'll go ahead and cap that. Yep, yeah, keep going, and she's going to keep on filling until, I would say, get that tank about halfway filled, and then you can stop. Alright, and we're capped here, so let's go ahead and we'll just wait for it to burp out. Alright, so the coolant is up to level. It's looking good. Doesn't seem like there's any more air in the system, so we're just going to go ahead and do the same thing. Start the ski, run on the hose for 30 seconds to a minute, and then just double check this, see if it needs to be topped off, and that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll just let this run. Alright, we're looking good there. Go ahead and shut this guy off. I'm going to burp this real quick. Just to get any water out of the tank. Alright, so I'm going to let this cool down for a second, and then we're going to pop the cap off, just see if it needs any more topping off. Okay, I just checked the tank, and it's looking good to go. So we are all finished here. Just to summarize, we drained the initial fill, flushed it twice with distilled water just to get all the remaining system stuff out of there, and then we topped it off. We refilled with new coolant, which is just Prestone pre-mixed, which is safe for aluminum engines and has low distillates, so very good to use for this engine. Again, you can use the XPS stuff. Really, you can use anything that's rated for aluminum engines. The only step that I skipped that was in the service manual is to use this Xerox Super Cleaner by Valvoline. They recommend that you run that in the engine for about 15 to 20 hours or so, and then flush that and then refill it with the new stuff. I never really need to do that because I'm kind of on top of all the coolant changes, but if your ski is overdue for a coolant change, that might be wise to do, because it does a pretty good job at cleaning out like the gunk, and once the coolant gets old, it kind of glumps up in like a gummy looking stuff, and it can kind of really restrict your coolant flow. So if you're overdue for your coolant, I recommend running that. It doesn't have to be the Xerox Super Cleaner by Valvoline. It could be anything that's rated for any coolant cleaning system that's rated for aluminum engines, and then you'll be perfectly fine there. So that's pretty much it for this video. If you guys have any questions, let me know. On a side note, this ski has been sitting in the sun pretty much its entire life for the past 4 years or so, and you can kind of see it. It's really faded. All the plastics are faded. Definitely heavy on the, you can see, I mean, even in the acceleration and brake things they're all really, I mean, this is just bad looking. The stickers are falling apart. So in the next few weeks, I'll be taking the time to go through what you can do to fix this. There's a bunch of methods out there. I'm going to end up just taking all the plastics off and actually using a trim paint instead of a trim restore, because all the trim restore stuff just, it never works. You get a couple weeks out of it, and then it's back to looking how it was. The only way you can really fix this is to actually paint the plastics. Otherwise, you know, it just keeps going back to the way it was. So we're going to go ahead and do that. You'll see we're going to fix up the speaker pods. They're all faded as well. So that should be a pretty good video. We're going to wait for a sunny and warmer day. But other than that, that's pretty much it for this video. If you guys have any questions, let me know.